Hello, my name is Samantha, and I'll be covering the podcast today of leadership in time of crisis, and that a leader does not emerge in a crisis, it only demands his presence and direction. And so, for this subject, we'll be covering some questions with our guests, Marvin and Chantal. So for our guest Marvin, he's studying in Fontaine's Venlo in the Netherlands, and he's studying international business management. And for our guest Chantal, she is currently studying in Ulasit, and she is in the career of science and business administration. First question will be, what is the possible origin of COVID-19?
For me, the origin of COVID-19 is experiments with animals. When the human beings wouldn't make that much experiments with animals, they couldn't get contracted with those um, toxic molecules. And if they wouldn't have researched with those dead bats in Wuhan, China, they couldn't have spread the virus, or just like get the virus from the bat over to the human being.
I disagree with this statement. Humans have experimented with animals since the beginning of time. It only varies from country to country what sort of animal based on culture, what they eat, what they experiment on, and such. So saying it was just because of what they ate, I feel like that's targeting somebody's culture and background without really knowing what's going on around their surroundings if that's the only thing they have to eat or such. And I also think it's incorrect to blame it on that specific people. It hasn't been established with certainty what was the cause of COVID-19. The only thing that was able to be placed was the origin of it, which was Wuhan in China.
Then, for the second question, what has been its impact on the world economy?
The impact on the world economy is bilateral, because for some companies they made huge losses. Some whole industries got kind of shut down. The air industry, like all the air flying industry, had to had to make huge losses. Um, but for example, the air freight or the parcel service industry gained a lot of money and demand from the pandemic. So the pandemic benefited in this kind of way that a lot more people wanted to order stuff from home, so they can, so they are prevented that they don't contract with the virus. So it's some economies, the most economies didn't profit from the pandemic, but a few also profited from the pandemic. But overall, the majority suffered a lot of turnover losses from the pandemic situation and right now.
I agree with Marvin on this statement. I do believe that it has been bilateral. Some companies, such as Amazon, have grown their profit margins incredibly because of COVID-19. Not only are they a big competitor for almost anything in the market, but being an online resource did provide very effective for consumers. However, other companies, which is the case of most worldwide, were affected greatly. Not having tourism, not having people go outside and go out and eat and things like that have affected it really badly to such point that many people have actually had to proclaim their business in bankruptcy. So it has shown some of the bigger companies that they can adapt quickly, and it has shown smaller companies that they need to be one step ahead of the game in order to keep with what is happening in the world. A lot of small businesses such as Olivia's Bakery, which is in Coronel, Costa Rica, was able to adapt fairly quickly. They installed or well signed a contract with Uber Eats, which allowed them to send their products out and people would purchase it to help the local economy. But others like small solas maybe who weren't really prepared or who have older people running the business probably didn't know of this technology and had to shut down. So it's very, I would say more like 70-30. 70% of the business is not being able to adapt and 30% actually thriving in what's happening.
For the third question, we have what have been the most affected age groups?
Obviously, older people are more likely to contract with the virus than younger people because of the immune system.
Wouldn't say obviously, as I don't think anything is really obvious. It is a bit clear thanks to the numbers that elderly people have been a bigger target, or when they contain the virus have been at greater risk. However, that really depends just on your immune system. If you're 22 and you have respiration problems such as asthma and you get the virus, it is very likely you're going to end up in a ventilator. But being said that the question is what have been the most affected groups, I would say it's the elderly, only because as we age, our body tends to shut down certain areas, sort of say, like our lungs don't function the way that they would function when we were 30 or even 15. But it really depends on our condition and our immune system.
Last question we'll have for tonight will be, what kind of leadership is required to deal with this unusual situation?
There's very professional leadership and responsibility needed to be able to fight this virus. We have to unite as we have to unite like through countries, regions, continents. We have to unite and stand up against the virus, sharing our research data, sharing our research results, and sharing our hygiene concepts that we can all continue our life as much as possible, but within staying safe, with no contracting the virus or endangering our parents or grandparents by having the possibility to be contracted with the virus.
I would say that the type of leadership that we need is very strong, decisive, creative, and strategic leadership, most of all. I think because of the virus not really being known like that fully or not really being something that we've seen previously, we need leaders who be able to adapt to any sort of problem that arises within the country, like people not being able to pay their rent, people not being able to have food on their plates. So, what would the president or the leader of that country do in order to help his population not starve and not go homeless? I think they need to be able to adapt very quickly to the different curves that show up on the road. Because of that, it would make the difference between having the percentage of unemployment in your country go way down, hit the road, or try and just go a little bit lower than what it's expected at right now, but not completely on the floor. I think they also have to be able to be willing to share the information and their resources with other countries. Because if we don't unite as one, we won't be able to get over this whole COVID-19 situation. And the fact that if only one country like says, "Oh, we found a cure, but we're not going to share it with anybody else," well, the rest of the world can't travel. The country's economy will collapse. So leadership who is willing to help other countries to help just get over the situation. If we unite, that's the way that we'll get through with this. Without that, it's not going to be possible to continue.
So, considering the answers offered by our guests, Chantal and Marvin, we can see the severity of the effects of this disease as well as its impact on the economic activity of countries. This disease has significantly affected the growth of chances of economies globally and projects significant delays in their recovery. The required leadership characteristics point to strong decision making determination, great responsiveness, and a lot of emotional intelligence. So, with all of this said, we conclude our podcast for tonight.